we pay very high taxes in California. We get very little as like working people in return. It's full stop. Okay. The amount of money, I mean, even with the gases, right? We pay a higher gas tax in California. And what is that money supposed to be used for?
Roads.
Well, for roads.
They're not. Oh my God. The potholes are horrible. They don't fix them.
The roads are they're just terrible, right? There's potholes everywhere. You're correct. There's trash everywhere. You know, I think the Department of Sanitation is in need of more workers, and that's like playing into it. But what's also playing into it is this, honestly, the homeless issue, yes, and the fact that the city just allows them to like hoard literal garbage. And they say, no, it's not garbage, it's their belongings. But I'm sorry, like fast food bags from a month ago, those are not belongings. It's literal trash. These are people who have mental health issues. And you're just allowing them to wallow away and die on massive piles of garbage. And I say they allow it because this is what no one wants to talk about, and it's super uncomfortable, but it's the truth, and I'm going to say it. When there is housing and shelter available and they're offered the housing and shelter, no is not an answer. No is not an acceptable answer. You have to take the housing, period. I'm not allowed to do whatever the hell I want to my own property, right? I have to take out permits. I need to get permission from the city. I can't just do whatever I want. It's amazing to me how when it comes to working Americans in this state, when it comes to people who pay their taxes, have worked hard, have done everything right, whole host of rules for them, okay? But for some reason, it's a hands-off, no rules approach for people who are living on the streets. And the reason why they've gotten away with it for so long is because some of these people are really struggling, right? And you feel bad for them. And I certainly feel bad for them. But a lot of these people are struggling with severe mental health issues, or in some cases, they, are addicted to drugs. They don't want to take the housing. They like the freedom of living outdoors. Not everyone. Yeah. But we have a massive homeless population that's actually staying with loved ones, or they're couch surfing. Those are the people who we don't see. The homeless people we do see, for the most part, on the streets are those battling with addiction and mental illness. And so this idea of like, oh, well, we offered them housing and they said no, so now we're just going to leave them on the streets. I don't agree with that.
So I've always believed this should be a federal issue and not a state issue, because it seems as though a lot of states, their solution, including Las Vegas, is simply, we'll give you a bus ticket anywhere you want to go. And that's our solution. And so a lot of homeless people in Vegas, for instance, will say, I want to go to Santa Monica. And
a lot of people come here from all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, it doesn't seem like it should be a state issue, because you look at California and you say, why should California bear the burden for all the other states where people migrate to?
Totally what's happening right now. By the way, that's happening because, I mean, if you're homeless in another state and you're dealing with lawmakers there making it very difficult for you to camp wherever you want, you're going to want to go to the state where they allow you to camp wherever you want. And that's California.
Also the weather.
And the weather, of course. But weather is warm and nice in Florida too. They don't have the same issue we have here.
So what's the difference between Florida and California? Is it that Florida enforces stricter policies on sleeping overnight?
Yes.
And how do they combat that in terms of, let's say is someone going to go to jail because they don't have a place to sleep? Or
no,
how do they...
let me be clear about something. I don't want to put anyone in jail because they have nowhere to sleep. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm specifically talking about instance where they're offered housing and they deny it. And people think that that's a myth. That doesn't happen. Remember, California, or Los Angeles specifically, under the leadership of Mayor Karen Bass, has been purchasing like old hotel buildings. And the whole point is to shelter and house homeless people in those hotel rooms. And I remember reading a story by the Los Angeles Times just a few months ago about one of these hotels in downtown LA that's like sitting vacant. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why is it sitting vacant?
That's what happened in Venice. Remember they did that thing in Venice? And I think it was at the peak, it was like 60% occupied. But there were hundreds of people around it.
Yes.
And I remember reading something. Someone did an interview with these people, and they were asking people, why aren't you going and using it? And they say, there's no alcohol, no drug policy.
Yeah,
and
tough luck.
I can't comply with that. I don't want to comply with that. And I think there's also something about no pets, which that to me, I feel like,
that one makes a little bit of sense, but I bet you that's not the biggest percentage of the pie.
No.
The sucky part is it's not sympathetic at all to let people just sit on the streets. And
No.
people are saying like, oh,
No.
you know, they can come here and they can live for free and they can do all the, like, it's like the worst possible thing, unethical.
No one lives for free. Let's be clear about that. No one lives for free. Okay?
Your
We
house
pay
hacking.
for that.
Yeah.
We pay for that in every way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not, that's the problem that I've been having, because we pay insanely high taxes in this state. Our schools are garbage. Okay. Our communities are falling apart. We spend literally billions of dollars every year in this state on the homelessness issue, and it's only gotten worse. So these policies are failing. And so the idea that they're living for free, no, we're subsidizing what's going on.
Where's the money going?
I don't know. Oh, well, actually, I do know. Let's talk about where the money's going.
Yeah.
It's my favorite topic, my absolute favorite topic. Money's going to these garbage, and I mean it in every sense of that word and meaning, okay? Garbage nonprofits. A lot of these nonprofits are run by friends and family of elected lawmakers in this state, and they just pad their pockets with millions in government grants and do nothing to fix the
Wasn't there
homelessness
the case
problem.
of the place downtown LA that they were renting $60,000 a month? It's been vacant since like 2011.
Yep.
Because they claimed there was like a foundational issue or something like that, so it wasn't
Right.
safe. But they were doing all this like investigation for the foundation for a decade, and the city was paying $60,000 a month for shelter. Never got used.
That's
And then
right.
it came out that he was a friend of somebody on the board or something like that. Maybe they made a handshake agreement or something, but nothing has happened.
Yeah, these policies and the failure of these policies it can always be traced to the corruption, to the fact that the people making the decisions are less interested in solving the problem and certainly more interested in, giving handouts to their buddies who run these gross nonprofits. I remember one of these nonprofits, there have been a number of investigations into them. It's just that no one takes the investigation seriously because it's conservative outlets that do the investigations. And it really pisses me off because some of the reporting's been fantastic and they show their receipts. And so one of those investigations into an LA-based nonprofit dealing with homelessness followed them around in downtown to see like what do their workers actually do. And they were literally just handing out crack pipes to people who are struggling with addiction. I get the need, and I'm in favor of safe injection sites because you don't want to spread AIDS and diseases, and that makes all the sense in the world. Why are we spending taxpayer money on crack pipes? Exactly. Like what was the point of that? And why are we like just spreading them out onto the streets? Like that's not what I wanted my tax money to go to.
Is there a solution? Because it doesn't seem as though anybody has any reasonable solution that could actually take place. I've always been in favor of mental health treatment because from my experience in Santa Monica, 90+% of it seems to be mental health related, just from what I've anecdotally seen.
Of course. I mean,
and
yes.
there doesn't seem to
That's
be
what you
any-
see on the streets,
There's no
yes.
long-term treatment because you can't necessarily force someone to seek treatment that they don't want, but you
This
can't
is-
put them in jail. But
Yeah.
you can't
No,
quite just
no,
up
you
and
can't.
But I'm just
Again,
saying.
I want to really
Yeah,
reiterate. I don't want
we're
to
on the same page.
I don't want to throw homeless people in jail. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, we're on the same
That's
page.
insane.
But
yeah.
if someone refuses to leave,
Right.
they don't want to seek treatment, but you can't have them on the street in a position where they could be in danger. What's the solution? I don't know.
So
any
it's a
solution.
to say that it's one thing, it would be wrong because this is a more complex issue. I think the left minimizes it and simplifies it by saying it's just merely a housing issue. It's not merely a housing issue. I mean, clearly. I do think that we need to build more housing. I think the way the LA City Council has been doing that so far has been pretty disastrous. For instance, they approved a 7-story apartment building in a single-story residential home neighborhood in Sherman Oaks. I went to a neighborhood council. Well, it wasn't really a neighborhood council meeting. Nithya Raman, who's the council member representing that district, was debating her opponent. And so I believe it was last week I went to that debate, and it was being hosted by the neighborhood council. So that issue came up. And I'm like, why would they say no to a proposal that I think makes all the sense in the world that would build apartment buildings along Sepulveda Boulevard, right? The busy corridors.
Yes.
So along Sepulveda Boulevard and along Ventura. That was one of the proposals that was sent in to the city council. I don't know why, but the city council did not approve that and instead approved like this weird construction project that consists of a 7-story apartment
Do you have
building.
any idea why? Could that be that maybe there's
Could
some
be
back
corruption.
deals
Could be.
going on?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
So please take that with a grain of salt.
Sure.
It's something that needs to be investigated. But there are decisions being made that make no sense. But going back to your question about homelessness, we do need to build more housing. I totally agree with that. But simply doing that is not going to solve the problem, because there is a crisis in regard to mental health and drug addiction. Those are two issues that are driving the increase in homelessness, and those two issues need to be dealt with appropriately. And so Gavin Newsom, who I have no love for at all, had basically put out his proposal to institutionalize severely mentally ill people who can't care for themselves, and basically do it in rare instances against their will. But you have, unfortunately, organizations like the ACLU, which used to focus their energy on free speech. Now they're focusing their energy on pushing back against any policy that could help people that are like struggling on the streets, including those with mental health issues. They argue that it's a civil liberties issue to force people into mental health care. But I disagree. I think that it's one of the most inhumane things to watch people have these episodes publicly on our streets, waste away, and oftentimes die on our streets. And if they don't die on our streets, usually what will end up happening is they'll commit a crime that's so gruesome that they'll end up in prison for the rest of their lives. How is that humane?